But man, I love your story. Thank you for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, before we get into your life as a speaker, your life as a boxer, everything that's going on, I want to begin with, living through COVID 4.5 years ago or so shifted everything for all of us. How did you get through that time period, and how much of getting through that has affected what you do now?
Uh, how I got through it, uh, financially or emotionally?
Just probably emotionally, just overall, like, because we all had to kind of get to that point to get through it.
Yeah. Actually, I'll show you. Hold on.
Okay.
Started doing this thing July 26th, 2021. So during the pandemic, I started to slip into a depression. And
Yeah.
then through a TikTok video, learned about your reticular activating system.
Okay.
Are you familiar?
Yeah, I've heard about it. Yeah.
Okay, so it's like a filter in your brain. Your brain takes in billions of bits of information, filters it through your RAS. So your unconscious mind filters it through your RAS to your conscious mind. It goes from billions of bits of information to about 35. The 35 it chooses is what it believes your brain thinks is relevant to you. You go shopping for a yellow car, you don't buy one, but you start seeing yellow cars everywhere.
Yeah.
Because the second you tell your brain you're looking for a yellow car, your brain starts pointing them out.
Yeah.
When I saw this, because a lot was going on with politics and Hillary and Trump or whatever the time was,
Yeah.
and the George Floyd, and I was consumed by the news. So if you look for a yellow car, you find a yellow
Yeah.
car. I was looking at death, destruction, murder, rape, genocide, and it was all I was seeing in my life. And I thought life was so bad. And then I didn't want to go outside. And then I was on Twitter a lot. And then I got off Twitter and I went to the store and everyone was nice. And it blew my mind. And I was like, oh, what you seek is what you find. So I stopped watching the news. I don't know what's going on in the world. I don't vote. And every morning I wake up, I write a list of 10 things I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
Uh, I do it every morning.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it has hijacked my brain to find more things to be grateful for in life.
Right on.
It's changed my attitude. It's changed what I speak about because I used to speak about bullying, but now I realize like the one of the quotes from my speech is if you can fail without being discouraged, success becomes inevitable. What do we do to stop ourselves from being discouraged? Because we don't quit when we fail, we quit when we get discouraged.
Yeah.
And that often happens before we even start. So we don't start a lot of things.
Yeah.
I started to implement things in my life that bring me happiness and like hijacking my brain. So I taught myself how to stop being discouraged. And I realized in my life, all the times I've slipped into a depression or life has gone bad, I spoke about how life was going bad to myself all the time, and then it kind of happened.
Yeah.
Uh, Even when a bad thing happens in your life, it's like how you react to things. If I just point out the negative, I see the negative, I live in that negative. And I saw that I'd done this pattern a few times in my life. And I started boxing because I was getting bullied. And I was released from school 10 minutes early so I can get home before my bully got to me. And I was fully aware that I was a punk. Like I was a coward. I was afraid of the confrontation. And when I was walking home, I would tell myself these things. I'm afraid. I'm a coward. I'm scared. And I lived that life. In high school, I decided to join the boxing gym, which was 6 miles away from my school. So it was a 3 hour walk. And because I wanted to look like a boxer to protect myself, I made that 3 hour walk. But during the walk, I would just tell myself how great I was all the time.
Yeah.
Like I'm knocking everyone out. I have all the money, all the cars, I'm the champion. And none of it was true, but more highly I spoke of myself, the better I did.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of created a confidence within me that allowed me to become the number one boxer in the country in 2 years.
So these days, right now, if I was to put you in front of a bunch of grade school kids and it's career day, and one of the kids wants to know what you do for a living, what would you tell them?
Uh, I'm a speaker.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a speaker, MC, entertainer.
Okay. So take me back to when you were in the third grade. What did you want to be when you grew up? Was it always to get into sports, or what was
Oh,
your?
no, I don't even like sports.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, I wanted to be a performer.
Okay.
So I love the show in all that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you remember the show back in the day. It was
Uh-huh.
Okay, a kid Saturday Night Live, basically.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be on that show. I wanted to be on Keenan and Kel. Like that's what I thought I was going to do when I grow up. And it didn't happen because I don't know how it happens. And now that I'm older, I'm like, oh, parents take their kids to auditions and stuff. Yeah, I just we're just home wishing would happen. But when I joined the boxing gym to lose weight and defend myself, I realized that the talented people are only good because they're talented, and I could just outwork them.
Yeah.
And within 2 years, I became number one boxer. And I was like, oh, if I become good enough at boxing, I could get my own reality show. Because this was 2008. Everyone was getting their own
Sure.
shows. So my goal was to be a performer. So I would get good at boxing. I would get an agent or something, and then they get me my own show. That's how it would probably work.
Yeah.
And I got really good at boxing. I started to travel the world with boxing. I was captain of the USA national team, going to other countries, fighting their number one boxers. Won nationals in 08, 09, 2010, 11, and then 2012. Won the Olympic trials to represent the US in the London Olympics, and then got kicked off the Olympic team for not sending in my drug testing paperwork on time.
Wow.
And it was in I was living in Kansas City at the time. This is before like the Royals was good. This is before the Chiefs were a dynasty, before Taylor Swift cared who we were. Like the Kansas City Star wrote a lot about me.
Yeah.
And I felt like I not only disappointed those, actually, I wouldn't even say I felt like I disappointed them. It was more of a selfish thing. I feel like I was embarrassed. And it sucked because I everything I built for the last 4 years was to go to the Olympics, and I wasn't going to go. And I looked at my life. I was sleeping on a friend's couch in Kansas City, and I had this whole dream that I was going to box to be a performer, and I have done zero performing. Uh, so at the time it was Sanford and Sons at the Legends.
Yeah.
I started going there on Tuesday nights to open mic night, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to be a performer.
Yeah.
I thought it was TV show, but I like stand-up comedy,
Yeah.
so I would do open mics a few nights a week, and I eventually realized that I was only good because I thought I was good, and I told myself I was good when I was walking to the gym.
Yeah.
After my suspension was over, I had to lose weight and get back in shape, and I would work out for a few days and I'd fall off. And I'd work out for a few days and I'd fall off. And one day I was really beating myself up. I'm like, you fat idiot, you loser. What's your problem? You can't get it together. And I realized there was a difference between me in 2012 and the me that was walking to the gym in high school.
Yeah.
One of us liked me.
Yeah.
And then I started to think about what I think about. Like, here's the thing. No one thinks about you more than you think about yourself.
Yeah.
What do you think about you? Like, let's say you schedule the Zoom, right?
Yeah.
And you got the time zone wrong. Are you like, well, Joe, everyone makes a mistake. No big deal. Or you're like, you idiot.
Right. Oh, it's always forgiving. It's first world problems, you know? So,
yeah, that's not everyone's like that.
Right. Right.
And I wasn't like that at the time. And I realized I was beating myself up, and I was like, oh, I need to start being nice to me again.
Yeah.
So, and I need to believe in me. So one of the most popular comments on social media, which I read them all, is because I was very confident before. And if I put in the work, I knew I was going to win, and I usually would.
Yeah.
So I wore a pink skirt because I thought it'd be funny to beat up a grown man in a pink skirt.
Yeah.
I wore capes. I flipped in the ring. I did dances, all on the way to winning.
Yeah.
One of the number one comments I got was, I bet he's humble now.
Yeah.
That didn't feel good.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So then I thought, I was thinking about what we think about ourselves.
Sure.
And then I looked up the definition of humble. Have you ever done it, Joe?
Not lately.
So it's having or showing a low or modest estimate of one's own importance.
Yeah.
The Latin root word is lowly.
Right. Yeah.
So let's say you're killing it in the podcast world, Joe,
Yeah.
right? And you run into someone who's not. What do we usually do? We don't just lower ourselves down to them. We actually go a little bit lower so they can feel good.
Yeah. Sure.
So my question is, in this scenario, who does being humble serve?
It's going to serve them.
How? Because now they have a false sense of.
Yeah, that's true. I guess, but you're right. Both lose. I mean, you're taking yourself down, and the other person's getting a false sense.
So when I asked myself, who does being humble serve, and I couldn't figure it out, and Joe, do you have children?
Yes,
Would you wish like the definition of humility on your children? Because you can't have them reach for the stars like you want them to if they stay lowly and grounded.
right. True. Yeah,
And a lot of times you're like, don't celebrate too much because you don't want anyone to think you're better than them.
yeah,
But what if your kid is better than them?
yeah,
He needs to pretend he's not. So then he starts carrying himself as he's not as great as he is. And then you wonder why we can't fulfill our potential.
yeah,
This is when I realized the foundation of imposter syndrome is humility.
yeah,
Someone works so hard to get to a place in their life
yeah,
and they get there and they don't think they deserve to be there.
yeah. It's totally true.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. So, how did you get these? Did you grow up in Kansas City?
No, I grew up in Long Island, New York, and then my senior year of high school moved down to Florida, and then in 2008 I moved to Kansas City. Do you know who John Brown is? Ringside, the boxing
Yeah,
equipment company.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, that guy. He saw me fight at nationals and brought me in to spar with this guy, and he let me work for $10 an hour off the books. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
In his warehouse, and let me tell you, leaving Waffle House, we're making 6.15 an hour and getting to work $10 an hour off the books for a month at Ringside in Lenexa,
Oh yeah.
bro, I was balling.
Yeah.
Uh, then he invited me out. He says if he asked if I want to box for him, he would he would he would train me for free. He would pay for me to go out there. He would buy me a car. He would allow me to live in his house a year for free without rent. After a year, he will kick me out because I should have saved money by then. In exchange, I go and speak at all of the high schools and middle schools in the area, take over the gym class for the entire day, and get students to join Turner Boxing Academy, the nonprofit gym in Turner, Kansas.
Wow. Gold mine, right?
Bro, like he asked me, he's like, "What do you need to win?" Because I just won nationals. He said, "What do you need to repeat this?" And I said, "The only reason why I haven't won more is I can't afford to go."
Yeah.
And he's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "If you could pay for me to go to these fights, I'll just win them all."
Yeah.
And that was our agreement. And it was he never he came to I would fly to these fights on my own because he paid for my flight and my hotel. I didn't take a coach with me because if I took a coach with me, it would be, if let's say there was a fund of expenses, it would be half the fund would be spent on the coach's flight, the coach's hotel, the coach's food. So it's like, oh, I can just travel and fight more if I just went by myself.
Yeah.
So he paid for me to. I wouldn't have been able to do this without him. Uh, I
Wow.
would I would fly to the fights, register myself, find a random person to work my corner at the fights. I would win Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. He flies in on Saturday, works my corner in the finals. We take a picture together. He asks me what I need. He goes back to Lenexa. I continue on with boxing. It was a perfect for. I coach myself basically, and it's how I retired with more boxing matches than any other boxer in history in the
Wow.
U.S.
That's amazing. So who's been your hero? Who's been that bedrock that's instilled this winning attitude and just overall in your life? Who's been that person?
Me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it can't be anyone else.
Yeah.
I think you should be that person.
Yeah.
Like I, yeah, I'm definitely that person for me. And I think it might have been because I didn't feel like I could rely on other people growing up. Like when dealing with the bullying situation, which in hindsight, like I was sent to the hospital once. A kid had slammed my head into a wall, and I got sent to the hospital with concussion. And that's when they started releasing me 10 minutes early.
Yeah.
And when I would tell people in my house, they're like, "You better go out there and fight that boy like a man." And it's like I didn't feel like I could rely on other people, and I had to rely on myself.
Yeah.
And I realized every time I needed to rely on myself, I was there.
Yeah.
Like I'm consistently there for me. If I had to believe in someone, why not me?
Yeah. For sure.
Every time you have ever thought you were up against a challenge and you faced that challenge and you just moved on, like You showed that you were capable. If anything, you are better than you think you are.
Yeah.
If potential is unmatched, unaccomplished things that you're capable of doing, and if your potential is endless, then you will always be better than you think you are.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you think you're better than you think you? Why wouldn't you think you're better than you are now?
True.
Yeah.
So when you look back on your career and all the fights and the wins that you've had, what was one of the most seminal matches that you had? Whether you, you won or it was a long match, what was the one match that stands out?
Uh so I lost into 2007 Olympic trials, and it was 2008 Olympic trials, but it happened like the end of 2007. All the boxers that lost quit or turned pro. And that's when you usually turn pro because that's when you make money. But I had a thought. I was like, well, I might have been 18 at the time. I was like, well, if I turn if everyone turns pro and I don't, aren't I the best? And when I went to nationals a few months later in 2008, I was the most experienced guy. I'd only been to one or two tournaments, but everyone, all the new guys looked at me as, oh, that's the guy who was here for the last cycle.
Yeah.
And I realized when I got there, they were looking at me like I was the guy to beat.
Yeah.
So I walked the same way, like I started to walk around like I was the guy to beat. And I, everyone believed I was supposed to win. And then I thought I was supposed to believe I was supposed to win.
Yeah.
And it was a finals match. It was probably one of the hardest matches. My mouthpiece got knocked out twice. And the second time it gets knocked out, you get a point taken away. And as it was going out of my mouth, I remember jumping and trying to catch it with my mouth. I wasn't even close.
Yeah.
But as soon as it hits the floor, I grab it with my mouth, get back up and start trying to fight again.
Yeah.
And the ref laughed. And I was like, oh, he laughed. He's not going to take a point away from me. He knows I'm not trying to stall. And that was the match that I won and kind of solidified me as the number one boxer in the country. And I realized that, and one of my favorite quotes of all time, and in 2012, when I got kicked off the Olympic team and I was beating myself up, I'm not who I think I am. I'm not who you think I am.
Yeah.
I am who I think you think I am.
Okay.
Again, I'm not who I think I am. I'm not what you think I am. I don't know what you think. I am what I think you think I am.
Gotcha.
So my senior year of high school, right before graduation, I got to go back to my old high school and walk. And I didn't have friends there or anything, but I wanted to go back to flex on them. Like I was in shape, I had abs, I was a winner now. And the second I walked into school to show off on all these people, I reverted back to the unconfident, anxious person I used to be.
Yeah.
And I left New York. I couldn't wait to leave. And I realized we we allow ourselves to be who people expect us to be.
Yeah.
So like even if you're a person who always shows up on time or shows up late, you're known as that person, you will fulfill that role. And even if you want to be late to something, you're always a person that's early, you'll find a way to be early because people expect you to be. And so often we project who we are based off what other people think of us.
Yeah.
We allow other people to create our reality.
I get it. I totally get it. So, of everything that you've done and evolved into at this point, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
Oh, I did it my way.
Yeah.
I did everything independent. I also I'm the product of a lot of help from a lot of people. But I did everything my way. I had an opportunity to go to college. I would have to pay for it, and I was like, no. And at that moment, I realized I could take the path of boxing, it would be an unconventional path, and I understood the path would be more like this. While my peers who went to college and got a degree, their path might be a little more straight.
Yeah.
And every so often, I would look to see where they were. I know you're not supposed to like to see, but I had a vision for myself that I wanted to do what I wanted when I wanted. And I understood boxing was going to get me to the point where I could be a performer. 2012, I wasn't doing any performing. I started doing the open mics. I was speaking at schools, and I would use the last 5 minutes of every gym class, I'd take over the gym class for the entire day. I'd use the last 5 minutes of every class to try my jokes out.
Yeah.
And students liked the jokes more than they liked the boxing part.
Yeah.
So I started doing like basically 45-minute comedy shows. All the jokes have morals and messages attached. So the teachers are still happy, but everyone's having a good time. And I realized because I got good enough at it, I started to ask the school, I'm like, hey, instead of me taking over the entire gym class for 3 days and hang out at Wyandotte for 3 days, Wyandotte High School, I'm going to do a school-wide assembly, do it all at once, fulfill my obligation to John Brown, because that's what this deal was. I'm still fulfilling my obligation. So I started doing school-wide assemblies. At first, he was like, that wasn't our deal. I was like, no, you said you wanted kids to know about the boxing gym. I'm just efficient. And he's like, yeah. So I started doing school-wide assemblies. And as I traveled around the country for boxing matches, when I returned to boxing in 2013, if I spoke in Minnesota, I'd reach out to schools in Minnesota. I'd reach out to comedy clubs in Minnesota. I'd reach out to chambers of commerce and build a career for myself. Because when I got suspended in 2012, I realized I identified it as an athlete. And when my sport was taken from me, I had no identity.
Yeah.
I now talk to athletes about not identifying as an athlete. Let that be the least impressive thing you do in your life.
Yeah. That's fascinating. So, what did you like the best about living in Kansas City?
It's in the middle of the country, so you go to LA and New York in the same distance.
Yeah. 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 I've always heard
Yeah.
that geographically.
Yeah. Geographically, I love that everyone wears Kansas City clothing like they're tourists. I love I love that it's a big little city. I really enjoyed my time in Kansas City, but then as an adult, you don't get snow days, and that's for the
Right.
birds. So I moved down to Austin. Another reason I moved down to Austin, there's a huge comedy community down here.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. Joe Rogan has the comedy mothership and all of that. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a huge.
Yeah, there
Who's
are
your favorite?
more open mics. Sorry?
Oh, there's a lot of open mics down there.
There's usually one a night in Kansas City, 4 days. So there's like four open mics a week in Kansas City.
Yeah.
I did seven. I performed 7 times on a Monday at just open mics walking around Sixth Street.
So,
Yeah.
a lot of people, I don't know if they understand how hard it is to get on stage and to put yourself out there as a comedian. What's harder, getting into the ring as a boxer or getting on stage as a comedian?
Uh, yeah. Physically, the boxing is harder.
Yeah.
Actually, because in boxing, a dude trains to fight you, and then you get in the ring and you try to kill each other, and then after they hand you a microphone.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much the same thing, but now
Sure.
I'm not sweaty. Uh, I would say they both have their difficulties, but I would rather do stand up.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, there is no better feeling than hitting a man with a punch and watching his body crumble beneath him. Like, oh, that's a good feeling.
Yeah.
Uh, but also there's a risk of getting punched as well and letting that happen to you.
Yeah.
So I have done very bad in stand-up. I've bombed a lot, and it also feels bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've,
it's
I've
less
heard that.
physical. It's a scar that you can't. It's like they don't like you. They don't like who you are. And and you can't get off stage. Like if you're bombing and you have 15 minutes, you just have to go through 15 minutes of just discomfort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight, ran into that version of you, when you decided that you wanted to get into boxing and you were going to change your life and not be bullied anymore, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the man you are now, the life you've lived, the wisdom you've gained, what would you tell that young version of you?
Most people are dumb. Do what you're going to do anyway. Like people will give you advice and tell you what they need to do. And also, you're dumb as well. And the best way to be undumb is through experience.
Yeah.
Like, don't learn from books, learn from real life.
Yeah.
All the information is there. There's AI, there's ChatGPT, there's everything you need. It's discipline that's important. And if you're willing to be disciplined, you could do what you want whenever. It might take a little longer, but yeah, do it your way.
Absolutely. So, hey, Cam, if anyone wants to reach out, they want to hire you, they want to learn more, they have questions, where's the best place to go?
You can find me at CamFAwesome on all social media and camfawesome.com. I'm a keynote speaker. I'm a 12-time national champion, former heavyweight Olympic boxer, former captain of the USA national boxing team. As team captain, I would find the do's and don'ts about each country would travel to and learn about the culture, relay the message to my teammates so we don't look like idiots in other countries.
Yeah.
It rarely worked. But through doing that for about 15 years, I learned a lot about cultural communication. So I'm a keynote speaker. I speak on resilience and I speak on cultural communication in the workplace.
Right on. Cam, this has been great, man. Thank you so much for opening up. I'm going to direct everybody your direction. Best of luck with everything, man.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day, Joe.
You too. Take care. See ya.